or whatever. Anyway, good morning, everyone. How's it going this morning? Working on, well, I guess probably not morning for all of you. It could be evening. What are you guys working on at the moment? We're going to be taking a look at some works today from 5 different Patreon supporters here. We've got not necessarily 5 works, though. A couple of the guys submitted a couple things, so got a good amount of stuff to look at here today. And then just a reminder, too, that I'll remind you guys later. A couple things, actually. Number one is that tomorrow I'll be live streaming again the progress here on the Machining Krieger Dachshund kit. So as you can see, I got it standing here with the legs and the body, and a lot of the sanding, a lot of the seam line removal is mostly done. A couple of little bits that needed a little bit more super glue on there, just a little bit, last couple touch-ups on the seam line so far, but basically everything here is for the most part ready, but there's a bunch of parts to add onto the body, and then the arms are kind of mostly done as well too, but still kind of in pieces because there's still a couple of parts of the arms that still need to work on. So yeah, there'll be one more live stream working on this tomorrow, and I don't know if Link's going to be joining me or not. I think maybe not. It might just be me again. But pretty much finishing the general construction of that tomorrow. That'll be, so that's looking pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. That's fun. And then I mentioned yesterday, towards the end of the stream yesterday, if you guys were watching the live build of the Judge kit, that was a lot of fun. I mentioned that on Friday morning, I was planning to build the Master Grade Age 1 Sparrow kit. But then I remembered, I can't do that on Friday morning because I have to stay at home with my son. It's a spring vacation for my son's preschool, so I'm going to be staying at home on Friday actually with him. So I can't live stream with you guys. So I just went ahead and built it up last night at home. So here's the Age 1 Sparrow kit. So I'll be doing a review of this here shortly for you guys. I saw Crows there in the chat, so you'd be happy to see this. I already showed a picture of to him last night. And I see Adam is there in the chat as well. Good morning, Adam. And so that's another good thing to remind you guys about too. Also, before we get started, is that I'll be live with Adam on the USA Gundam TV channel on Friday. So again, if you're in the US, it's Friday morning. Here for me on this side of the world, that's Friday night, Friday evening. And not only are we going to be just doing our kind of standard Q&A show for you guys to be able to ask your questions there for Adam, as we normally do on those live streams, we also will have a giveaway, which will be the Master Grade expansion set for the Barbatos, the P-Bandai expansion set for making different forms of the Barbatos. And even more exciting is that we'll also be announcing the next contest. So the next USA Gundam Store contest that I'll be organizing and letting you guys know about is going to be announced at that time as well too, and it's going to be pretty cool. So we've got some really cool judges lined up for that as well too, and so it's going to be good. So yeah, prizes of course and all that as well too. So there is a lot. That's just yes, Age Simp showed up. Yes, that's not easy to say, but yes. So yeah, that's what's going to be going on in the live streaming news, the live streaming related news for the next couple days. Also, possibly live streaming tomorrow afternoon with Josh for a episode of Plum on a Trend, but I'm not sure about that. We'll have to see. I wasn't really understanding that we were already planning on doing it tomorrow, but then Josh texted me this morning and said, "Hey, I can't do it today." So he was under the understanding that we were doing it today. So I said, I thought we were doing it tomorrow, and he hasn't replied back yet. So possibly that it will be tomorrow, but definitely tomorrow morning, be live streaming the Dachshund. Saturday, I'll be on the USA Gundam TV channel with Adam, announcing the new contest, answering your guys' questions, giving away the P-Bandai Barbatos set. So yes, okay, that is what I need to update you guys on now for the moment. I'll go through that again probably at the end of the stream just to let people know who come in later about that all important stuff. But for now, let's get into it. taking a look at some stuff. I see Forged here's in the chat, and we're taking a look at his stuff first. So let me get this opened up. And just a reminder to you guys that these videos are just taking a look at work submitted by my lovely Patreon supporters. So if you guys are interested in submitting stuff for anything in the future, for future episodes, we try to do these episodes once a month. Yeah, just Patreon supporters can submit their work to be reviewed. So work in progress or finished work, whatever, kind of whatever they're working on, just not really necessarily any rules to it. So we've got all kinds of stuff here. So let me go ahead and put this up on the screen for you guys. Here we are. All right. That. There you go. And let me also, let's see. Hello. I see a few people there saying hi in the chat. Hey, what's going on? Wong Andrew, Dark Pit, Digital Fanboy, Michael, what's going on, guys? Scarlet, what's going on? All right. So Forge, what did he say in his text here in his email? Said, I don't do much modeling or full paint jobs. I just don't really have the time or availability. I will paint whatever I can on a kit, though, provided I have a chance to do so. So yes, he usually doesn't do like a ton of painting. It's usually just like a lot of detail painting, as you guys will see here in the photos. So included are some of my detail painting jobs and pilot figure painting. Still got a lot of work to do when it comes to cleanup, though, in terms of learning. I mostly just freehand off the top of my head at this point. Also tossed in the comparison pics for the pilot figure. Nothing too impressive, but enough to state my painting urges. Okay. All right. Yes. So there's just a couple of bits of hand painting stuff that he's working on here. So let's take a look at these. We got a few different things, as you can see. This would be on a master grade, it looks like, I think, and Forge is in the chat, you can let us know. But yeah, I think this is a master grade RX-782 beam rifle. I'm not sure exactly which one offhand. I want to say it's either the 2.0 or the 1 Year War version or something. It doesn't look like the 3.0, I don't believe. Yeah, which one is that, actually? I'm not sure. Also, like the secondary handle, the forward handle, looks a bit different, so that's kind of confusing me. And I don't think it's the PG, the old PG. 120 scope dogs beam rifle. Oh, okay. Why am I thinking it's the RX-72 beam? That's why it looks a bit odd. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that makes sense. That's why the forward handle is looking a bit different from any other version of the Gundam. Okay. Thank you. That's why you're here in the chat, to help out with that. Scope Dogs beam rifle. It's basically the RX-782's beam rifle with the front and back ends chopped off. But yeah, there you go. So detail painting, that's good. Forged, I'm wondering, when you do your detail painting, do you panel line first? Like in this, for instance, when you're painting this, because if it was me, whether it's painted or unpainted, I find for doing this kind of stuff, panel lining first is really super helpful, because it basically just gives you an outline, and then you just, when you're doing your detail painting, you're just like kind of coloring in the space, sort of like a coloring book kind of thing. You know what I mean? You've already got your black outline there, and you're just filling in the space in between. And it also helps you to kind of know, because where you get into trouble, like when you're painting an edge of something. Oh, how can I demonstrate this? Anyway, so say like this is your piece. This, hang on. Put me up on the screen here. Here's the piece, and this is like the raised piece, and this is like the flat level that you want to paint. And so when you're painting this part just by hand, imagine it's like super tiny. And this is the section that you want to paint. And it's kind of hard to know how far you can go down with the brush towards the inside corner, because once you touch that inside corner, the paint is going to fill that, and that's not going to look right. You want it to be, this part is supposed to be painted, but this part is not. And once that middle corner is painted, once you get paint in there, then it's just not going to look right. So it's kind of hard to know. You're like painting closer and closer, and you got to get really super close without touching the inside corner there. But if you have that panel line already lined in black in there first, then you can kind of just get close. You don't have to get that close because the line is already there. You don't have to push it like all the way up to the edge. I just find it a little bit easier. And let's see, he said, not really most, it's just as I go. So you can see the paint bleeding through it. So yeah, let me just throw that back up on the screen then here. So yeah, so you can see like here, it looks like that kind of copper colored paint or something like that got into this like sort of panel line, inner line detail there a little bit. So yeah, I find just to help avoid from that happening, I find it helpful to panel line first. So then you don't need to get so close to the edge when you're painting. Just little hand paint detail stuff like that. Yeah. So let's see a couple more things here. These, let's see, are these also Scope Dog guns? I don't know. They don't look like it to me. They look like something else, but I don't know what these are that I'm looking at. And I'm also not sure. The problem is I don't know what these look like completely unpainted, but I'm guessing that they're kind of probably just all one color. Are these from the Testament? Or they're from a Gundam kit, aren't they? The Strike Noir or something? I'm guessing they're probably just kind of all one color straight out the box. Probably. So everything is just kind of detail painted. On this dark gray section here on the bottom side, there's kind of like this black kind of gunk going on there. And because it's on both of them, it almost looks intentional or something, but I'm not sure. I'm guessing that's not intentional. Maybe it's just like some bit that's not cleaned up. They're the same gray as right around the text. Okay, so custom pistols, yeah, see, because MG Testament pistols, he said, yeah, okay, yeah, Testament. So yeah, this gray here around the midsection, I guess, is the gray that is the original gray that they're in. Everything else, I think, is all new or all painted. But yeah, I'm wondering what's going on with this black stuff there on the bottom. You know what I mean? It looks like it's like some oil or something on there. But other than that, I mean, especially for just being small little things that are going to be in the hand of your master grade, it looks pretty good. This one here too, you can see like just around the text on this, like here is, it's just not perfectly cleaned up. But I mean, I'm sure you can probably clean that up a little bit more or something, but the colors look cool as well too. No, definitely not intentional. Just excess paint I hadn't taken care of. Okay, so yeah, it's just not cleaned up yet. That paint there on the bottom. But yeah, I mean, good color choices. I like the color choices for that. Nothing too wild and nothing too shiny. I mean, obviously you got this kind of shiny gunmetal on there, but it's not like obnoxiously chrome or something like that. You got a couple little bits of kind of more silvery chrome little details on there, but I don't like personally too much kind of chrome and stuff on weapons. Little bits like that is good, I think. And the pilot figure. So here he said, here's the painted and unpainted version, so you can get a sense of how these come straight out the box, basically all one color, and then like flesh tone color for the head, which is nice. You don't need to paint the flesh tone. So like for this, you can see he painted the hair and then some of the darker red details around on the body and some of these other details. It looks good, you know. These are 120 scale, I'm guessing. I'm pretty sure. So, you know, it's about like that. It's a couple inches high. Not that big for these. So, yeah, it definitely looks a lot better. And, of course, it's Bandai, so they don't come with waterside decals for the eyes. But I'm not sure any set of male eyes in 120 scale, unless you get like one of the... There is a... Are there? In the Minimum Factory line from Max Factory, I think there's one or two male characters. You could steal like the 120 scale eyes, eye decals from one of those kids or something like that, for example, to put on the eyes. That might make it easier. There's also a 120 scale eye decals. I think they're 120 scale, right? Yeah, they must be. In like a couple of decal sets that came out for the Hexagear kits. Like they put out a couple of decal sets, the Hexagear kits. but those are also kind of female eyes, so I might be kind of out of luck. This one is for the perfect grade. Is it? What's this one for? Forged? I can't tell. The Plemax stuff is actually oversized in terms of the male characters. He says, okay. This one, that metallic blue for the face mask looks really nice. That's good. Yeah, here too you can see this one also definitely for pilot figures. Doing your pen aligning in there first, I think will definitely help with these as well too. Just to get this detail kind of already outlined a little bit, so then when you're laying that red down, you can avoid the red kind of bleeding off to the sides a little bit there like that. So, and then the red here around the crotch section. That one as well too. PG Unicorn, or PG Unleashed. Someone said, Marcus said. And then let's see, I think that was it, right? Yeah. But yeah, those are nice. That blue, it looks nice for the head. It's a nice kind of matte, a little bit, or at least in the photo here, it looks somewhat matte finish. They're a nice baby blue for that hair color. Let's see, cleanup was needed. Also, a magnifying glass would be nice. The red on the crotches, unfortunately. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, a magnifying glass or a loop, something that you can use for that sure would be good. I also don't have one of those, but I've been thinking I should probably get one at some point. But yeah, definitely. I mean, the colors, everything, and the color choices on everything look really nice. So I would say just my advice for you would be to try doing some pen aligning on this stuff first. Now, the trouble is pen aligning on figures is a little bit more, they're not massive mechs. So like pen aligning doesn't necessarily like apply as much for these in terms of like the looking realistic, but you just choosing how much you lay in there and the color that you use can make it not so extreme. I wouldn't recommend just going in there with a bunch of black pen aligner all over this thing, but you could use a little bit of brown pen align wash in there, and I think that'll make painting these a little bit easier once you've got your outline already laid in there. So give it a try. And there you go. There. Thank you, Forged, as always, for that. Let's see. We have next then James. Let's see. James, are you here? Are you there, James? We've seen James's work over the past couple episodes, moving along. Let's see, with his sort of Phoenix-inspired custom IBO kit here. Let me share this. So we've already had a couple of opportunities so far to here but not for long. All right, James. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'll try to make it quick, at least if you've got to run soon. But yeah, so we've seen this in the past couple episodes. James making some adjustments to his Phoenix-inspired IBO build here, so you can see what he's done with this. This one I thought was good. His original V-fin design, and compared to some kind of new iterations of that, I think the latest one definitely is looking the best, James. Best so far. You can see so he 3D printed that for the V-fin, and then here on the mobile suit there, like that. The angle of it, it's kind of hard to tell in this photo, but maybe you would see if you can adjust the angle of it, because it looks a bit either like straight across or a little bit to the front, but see if you can angle it back a little bit, maybe. I think would also help that. But definitely it's the best looking one so far. And then let me see. He did include some information here in his email, so I do want to make sure I read that. Redesign the V-fin with a couple of different ideas. Let's see. And let's see. Yes. So he said he was choosing between C and B. Yeah, between B and C, I definitely think C is definitely the better one for that, because like I told you in the last episode, I think what would be good is to make it look like so that each spike was not the exact same size, just copy pasted kind of thing. But if they were a little bit different, and you kind of get a better sense of that here with the C one, that the smaller ones, at least, it still kind of looks like the same shape generally, and just you see less of it there. But I think that looks better seeing a kind of more variety size of the smaller one, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, like that. So yes. Thoratos's forearm had the seam lines removed, also snipped off the pegs on the arm so I can slide it inside. Yep. So yeah, seam line removal here on the forearm. Where was the picture of that? There you go. Much better, of course, once that seam is removed. That's looking good. And so you can just slip the arm into there like a sleeve, like a glove. Very nice. And the feet, he said, I misplaced one of the white armor covers for the Gushan feet, but I did like how large it was. So I got a part from the Barbatos backpack, cut it in half, and removed the plastic no longer needed, and on the actual foot, and glued the part on the foot. So let's see the feet there. Okay, yeah, it basically works. Same kind of thing. I mean, you're gonna make two of the same, right? Not having them different. I wouldn't recommend having them different like that, but I'm assuming you're just showing the comparison here. But yeah, I think doing that instead of, well, not instead. Ideally, you wouldn't have lost the one, right? But I think it can be a happy accident. It's different, similar, but different. So yeah, not bad. Changing that out for the new, like using part of the backpack for that. Yeah. Cool. So that works. And let me see. Action notes. IBO is more about melee weapons. I decided to get the IBO option parts. That includes the booster pack for the Kimaris and the sword for the Greys. And it was a sword. We gave it to Phoenix. The last issue of Hobby Japan has a section dedicated to airbrushing and getting close to that stage. Also found gold paint using very similar color to what I use. Okay. So yeah, he's getting ready to paint that then too. Once he gets into some airbrushing. So yeah, there you go. Hobby Japan usually has some good info in there. But yeah, I think it's coming along. James is looking good. You can see some improvements here along the way. The sword will be a good fit for that. Yeah, being an IBO kit, surely. And the backpack pods there. Let me just check here in the chat, make sure I didn't miss something. All right. Yes. The backpack, I want to see something a little bit more with them, because the Phoenix's backpack is with the big massive armed armor DE shields they're like so big, the massive and majestic shields there. Something a little bit more extravagant for the backpack. I think you can maybe add something to the backpack, because those kind of Greys booster pods there on the backpack are a little bit simple for if you're making it, if you want to make it Phoenix-esque. Here, I think adding something onto that could be kind of cool, whether it just be a couple of parts here and there or something like that. That's without knowing exactly what you have there to work with. It's kind of hard to say exactly what you could add to that, but a couple of parts just to kind of make those look a little bit larger, or a little bit more kind of ornate, some more bits kind of sticking off or something. But it depends. The trouble is making whatever you add to it, making it blend well. That's the trouble. So you have to see what you can do with that. But maybe try some different things, or of course just hit us up in the Discord with some different ideas or something if you agree with my thought on that and you want to try to add something more to the backpack. Let's see. You said I do have the no-name rifle wing parts. Yeah. yeah, some of those no-name rifle parts might work. Yeah. Yeah, it's got some kind of wild, weird shaped parts, I think. So yeah. Give that a try, and just with some sticky tack or something. If you have just some sticky tack, it's an easy way to just kind of see how it's going to look. Generally, tack a couple pieces onto there or something like that. See how it's looking, and kind of get a vague sense of how that might look. And share a couple photos in the Discord and get some feedback. Yeah, but it's coming along, I would say, definitely. So there you go. Thank you, James. Tyler, what's the Discord? The Discord is also a Patreon supporters perk. So yes, if you're interested in joining the Discord, which I highly recommend, you can check out my Patreon page to get access to that as well too. It's a good Discord, I think. I could be a little bit biased, but sorry, could be biased, but we got a good group of guys in there who are very knowledgeable and helpful and everything. So it's a good community there. All right. A few of them I can see are there in the chat, so they'll probably vouch for that as well too. Let me see here. All right, next we've got John's work. So let me go ahead, get this on the screen for you guys. On the PG Unleashed. See you, James. James is off to work. Glad we could get that in before you headed off to work, James. Have a good one. Thank you, as always. All right. Here we go. So John submitted two different works. This one is the PG Unleashed, and then also he has a custom White Dingo master grade that he's working on, White Dingo Gym that he's working on. Let me see. So for this one, let's see, wanted to do some of the metal plated parts and metal etching. Decided to keep the interior completely metallic. So let's see, he submitted a lot of work in progress photos here, a couple of them. So you can see some photographs here of the inner frame, all in a number of different metallic colors. I don't know exactly how many he used here. Let me see. So I didn't really care for the hands being so dark. I did a mix of chrome, black chrome, and magnesium here. So there you go. Like that. Making the chrome the primary color, and then switching some of the chrome pieces to black chrome. The exterior, I wanted a lighter color scheme with shading. So I went with black, gray primer for the base for most of the kit, and black primer for the darker gray parts, and red primer for the peach color, which there's not a lot of. Peach color. Is there? Where's the peach color? I'm not seeing that. Are you talking about for like that kind of lighter lavender color? I'm confused. This is for that, yeah. Let me see here, hang on. And then he said the main color consists of Gaia Notes EX white mixed with a hint of gray 1, gray 3, lavender, and half and half mix of white and purple. For the peach, I used Mr. Color Lascivious Peach White. Where's the peach? Why am I not seeing that? Am I missing something? Is it like this? Like a little bit there up on the jewel on the head? Or see, and like this like kind of bit, like the cross and the bit on the head and the vents in the chest, I guess, are like a very, very light peach color. It looks like just kind of like a very like a warm white basically, but I guess maybe that's what he's talking about. For the peach, it's Last of Us peach white. So yeah, I mean it'd be pretty light color. It's a skin tone paint for like warm white basically. Probably need more work on my pre-shading and want to highlight the center with a lighter tone color. So yeah, he's working on pre-shading, and he mentioned that he might need to work on that. Let's get to that here in a minute. I just want to go back to the work in progress shots here to see the metallic colors. I think, as you all may know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, I'm not a big metallic fan personally, but I think especially for this frame, I think it does look pretty nice. And for the frame, metallic frame is different from metallic armor. I think in this case, it is a really nice way to show off all the details of the frame and everything, all in metallics. It does look pretty good. Where I'm normally not totally into using so much metallics, and I think especially for the RX-78 II, I don't know why, like particularly with the RX-78 II having a all metallic inner frame, I'm usually a bit more into the look for depending on the kit. So like the RX-78 II is one that I think does look pretty good usually. When it has that all metallic frame. So yeah, I think it looks good. And the mix of different colors also looks good as well too. Better than just like a one solid metallic color for the entire inner frame. So again, of course, with it being the PG Unleashed, you have a lot of parts there that you can get this nice color separation of using a lot of different colors for the armor. So that looks good, I think. And then kind of darker color here. Let's see, can I rotate that left? There we go. I think I was just mentioning about this earlier, or I've mentioned about this before. Not a big fan of chrome gun barrels, but I know a lot of people do it. So I mean, I think I'm in the minority of not liking that, but it's just a personal thing. I don't care for that look for rifles, but I mean it's well painted anyway, and I do like this nice dark color there for the gun. It does look good. And some interior detail here, minus the detail painting, opposite of forged work. Forged, I can't say that with an S at the end. Work. Anyway, yeah, I mean, you're not ever going to see the pilot figure, so I'm with you. Why bother? As for the pre-shading on this, let me just see. HY. All right, I'm just checking in the chat there. Dynamic Joe asking, have you ever competed in any Gunpla builders tournaments? Yes, I've competed in GBWC once and a couple other small contests, just like smaller online contests. Yes, I have. Okay, anyway, back to this. The pre-shading, I mean, I think generally looks pretty fine. I mean, it looks kind of like your typical pre-shading. The fact that it's in blue, and I'm guessing that's what he did. I think he didn't mention here. Yeah, in his email about this, he didn't mention about the color of the pre-shading, but it looks like he pre-shaded with blue, because you can definitely see some blue around the edges like that. Which I'm not necessarily really a fan of usually. I mean, I guess you can probably make it work. I don't know. I think just like a grayish color. If you're going for like, because for me the pre-shading is basically a way to sort of make it look a bit more realistic, because you're wanting to pre-shade it to make it look a bit more kind of realistic in the scale, showing like basically shadows of these big massive chunks of armor and everything. So usually that wouldn't make it to actually be a different color from like the main armor piece. So I think in this case, using blue or using different colors like that it's a way not necessarily to make it look more realistic, but make it look a bit more stylistic, I think. So having that be in blue rather than just like a kind of grayish color or something like that. I definitely would not recommend using black. Definitely don't pre-shade with black under white or even under this purple. But I mean, just a darker color is what you need. But I think, yeah. And he also mentioned about possibly doing some highlighting instead. Highlighting could also definitely help too. And again, that just kind of helps to kind of push the realism look of that. But I mean, highlighting on white you can only go so white with it, and like I guess like on some of these parts, maybe you could have done a little bit more to push the levels of that by highlighting as well too, I guess, and like a really bright white color. And I mean, it's obviously on the gray parts you can highlight with a lighter color of gray. So yeah, maybe some highlighting I think maybe could have looked good, especially on these purple, because purple is such a bright color. It's kind of hard to use purple and make it look realistic and not stylistic, because it's such a vibrant color. But yeah, so definitely doing some highlighting on like this like darker purple color, I think, yeah, could look nice, surely. But yeah, the pre-shading, I think the application of the pre-shading, I think, looks fine. You've got a little bit here where it kind of looks like, hang on, let me see a good example, good close-up photo. This one might be the best one to see, where you can see like around the edge of this knee part, for example, where you've got it, it's a little bit darker from, that's the pre-shading that you've got there. And you can see it's not like it's a little bit like speckly, kind of, not sure the best word for that, but so basically what that looks like is your paint layer, and I mean, when ideally, or how it's typically done, right, for painting this, you'll kind of give a light spray over the entire part and then spray more paint around the center section, and not lay too much paint around the corners, the edges, because then you're going to basically erase your pre-shading if you're too heavy-handed with your main color of paint then on top of that. So that's the kind of trick, because it's very easy to erase and completely make invisible your pre-shading if you just coat the whole part. But I think your purple paint and like these colors of paint, when you're going over it the second time, needs to be thin enough so that it's not looking kind of speckly like that on the part that's not the section around the edges, the shaded areas that are not completely 100% opacity with your main color. Like here towards the center of the knee, that's like, of that lavender color, that's like 100% opacity, and then around the edges you want to go for like 80% or 90% or whatever. But in that 80 or 90% opacity area, to avoid the paint looking too speckly like that, it needs to be pretty thin. So that's basically kind of like the spray of the airbrush is what you're seeing there. So, I mean, it's a minor thing, and you can only really do it so far. But I mean, it's a small gripe. It looks fine. It doesn't look bad at all. But just maybe for when doing that, maybe your main color, at least at first, when you're laying down like a first coat of that, let it be pretty thin, I guess, probably not, not super thin, but just so that you don't get too much of that speckling on there. I don't know what would be a better word to use for that, but you guys get what I mean. Yeah. And then, if for then filling in the rest of the paint, you can go over that again. Maybe do your second coat with it not quite so thin, and then you can build up the opacity around the middle sections where you're not having the shading on there. But I think it looks great. I mean, I love the color scheme. It's the similar color scheme to that guy over there. That one. Yes, you can see from Sorry Kim. His what did he call that? I forget the word he called that. It's not fusion. What is it? Shit, I can't remember now. Damn, that's gonna bother me now because it's right on the tip of my tongue. Hybrid. There it is. Hybrid. Yes. So yeah, it's G3 colors, but because it's asymmetrical here, it's hybrid. Gundam color schemes. So yes. Anyway, there you go. Sorry, that's his one work. When we do have or changes. Okay, we've got his white dingo to look at here as well too. So let's get that. No, not that. And white dingo custom with work in progress using plot plate for the second time. Later photos show my attempt at scribing. Lots of feedback. Not particularly happy with how the top of the shoulders came out. Okay, so what we'll see here is a bunch of his work in progress shots on customizing his master grade white dingo kit. Let me put this up on screen. There you go. So this looks like some extension to the midsection. Should be in here to make the torso a bit longer. So I mean, obviously at this point it's still rough, so I may not need to say this at this point, but definitely make sure you just get some putty or some baby powder super glue mix or something in there just to get rid of that line there between the original part and the added plot plate. You can see that little bit of line there. So obviously, yeah, there's still very early on, so still some cleanup yet to do, but just make sure that is cleaned up, of course. And here you can see adding some the little fin detail there on the front of the chest. I fully support that. I'm always a fan of that detail. I like that. Some people do, some people don't. Hey, John. John just got in. John, we just finished talking about your PG, so you'll have to watch the playback on that. But yeah, that was looking good. Now we're just starting to look at the white dingo here. So glad you could make it. Anyway, yeah, I like the addition of the fins on there, and asymmetrical is good too. I mean, you could go either way, symmetrical or asymmetrical. With that, I think that's a cool detail. I always like to see that. So that looks good. This would be, which part is that? It's the side skirt armor. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at as far as the modification of the side skirt armor goes here. Some bits added onto the side of that, but I'm not sure why. And fortunately, John is here to answer that. But so John, you can let us know what we're looking at here with these side skirt modifications. Looks like some plot plate added onto that. So maybe just kind of generally changing the shape a little bit of the side skirt. And here on the front skirt, you can see adding plot plate to this. Some little bits of plot plate to add some detail on that, whereas originally it's just flat on the front there. If you guys are not familiar with the kit, it's just the Gym Sniper 2, basically. So adding some plot plate details on that, and looks pretty good. Again, just needs some cleanup, but I think just the general design of like the placement of these. Are you gonna leave? I'll try not to ask too many questions at once. Just pushing them out. Okay, so for the side skirts, just having them to be a little bit more set out away from the side a little bit, maybe. This is ideal for that. And I'm not sure if he's leaving. John, are you going to leave these bits of plot plate at the bottom there sticking out like that, or planning on shaving that down? It's a bit odd to leave them out, but I don't know if I'm totally against that. It could be kind of cool. I don't know, but I would shave it down a little bit, shape it so that it doesn't just look like a just flat, just rectangle piece of plot plate just stuck onto there. Shape it like shaving down the edge of that. I'm sure he's probably going to do that. Gonna keep it. So, I would shave it down, shape it a little bit. Again, I don't know how I can illustrate that, but to make it look more like it's a strip of armor. Let's see, like this. There's like a strip of just like whatever, instead of just being like stuck on your pieces like this, the armor piece underneath, and your plot plate pieces like that. But if you shave off the edge so that it looks more like that, I think it would look cool. Yeah. So as Michael's saying in the chat there, shave some putty behind it. Yeah, good shave off the end of that just a little bit. And then stick some putty or just another little, just cut a little tiny little piece of plot plate, just shove up underneath there a little bit as well too, or something. But yeah, I mean, I like the placement of those. I would shave down them at least a little bit though. Shape them a little bit towards the edge. That's what I would say. Here's some other little bits of plot plate added. Definitely getting some good variety in there is good. Would be a good idea rather than having, if you have too many little bits of plot plate, all of like the same size, like here on the side of the arm, or on the front of the bicep, here to there, and then on the chest, all basically kind of generally the same size, and also kind of within kind of the same area as well too, and the kind of same line going across from the arms to the chest to the arms. It will look more obvious if they're all the same size and all kind of in a line like that. But then again, once it's painted, obviously they're sticking out now because the kit's not painted, and it's very easy to see. But once the kit's painted, they'll blend in and disappear more once everything's painted. But I think just to be careful in avoiding that looking too obvious, adding them around, and a little bit different kind of variation of them, and in size a little bit different as well too. Another thing you can try too, I'm not sure if you have a scriber, but rather than sticking that directly onto there, scribe a groove first. If you have like I don't know, that looks maybe 1.5 millimeter or something like that. If you have a 1.5 or a 2 millimeter scriber, a chisel, then you can just chisel out a little space for that, and then stick that piece down into there. That also helps to look for like little latch details like that. Helps them to look more realistic. I did that. Go back to my work in progress on the messer. I did that a little bit on the messer. It kind of already, what I did was kind of adding that into spots where it already kind of had detail, but I would just kind of scribe the detail or chisel the detail out a little bit more. And then added the little bits of plot plate in there. Not that that's like the best or the only way to do that, obviously, but that's just one way that you might find fitting to what you're trying to do with that, or it might be worth a try as something else. Another thing that you can do for adding small little like latch details like that of plot plate. Obviously, there's not any one particular way or one way only to do that. It looks like here, I'm sorry, John, I should have looked at the rest of the photos here first. And I know there's a delay in the chat, so it's kind of hard to do one direct feedback here, but it does look like these bits on the bottom of the skirt are fleshed out a bit more with a part underneath or something under there here in this one. So I think we probably should have looked at some more work in progress photos here before talking too much about that. But yeah, that's looking better there. The shape of these plot plate bits are there on the bottom of the skirt. This would be this is a part on the backpack, isn't it? The center of the backpack, or no, the back of the legs. Okay, yeah, on the back of the legs. So it's adding this heat radiator detail there on that. Looks pretty good. You can get different detail parts like that where it's already pre-made for you, or you can make it by yourself relatively easily just by stacking plot plate. So that's looking pretty good. It doesn't look like it's a super perfect fit inside there. Like if we could just go back to this one. I'm wondering what you're using to cut that out. But anyway, I'm certainly very guilty of this as well too, because I'm not very careful in my modifications. I'm just kind of very ham-handed, and especially cutting things out like that. So doing perfection cutting is certainly not my forte. But for adding details like this, I think the more precise your cutting is for cutting that gap and then filling that with this space, the better it's going to look. So you just have to be really careful to just cut out that space there very carefully and precisely. For that, let's see. Okay, so here you can see a little bit further along with some more plot plate bits added. Oh, we skipped one. Yes, And this one too. So for adding these parts, you basically just drill a hole in the side of the backpack there. That works, well enough for that. Easy peasy. And then adding these missile launchers. Oh, are these from a Kotobukiya set? I believe they were, right? These were from a recent Kotobukiya set, I believe. Those missile tubes. The sinks seem to be a bit uneven there as well too. Yeah, Chris. Yes, that's true. Yeah, you can see they're a little bit uneven in some of those. But yeah, I noticed that as well too. But I figured once they're painted, it's gonna be probably not that obvious, because I'm sure, I don't know what color they're going to be, but probably a dark gray or gunmetal kind of color or something like that, some darker color, and it's not really going to be as obvious. But yeah, if you want to go back and kind of reshape those, rework those a little bit, yeah, I think you could make those a little bit more even as well too. Yeah. Anyway, these missile tube parts there. Yeah. John said yes, those are from Kotobukiya. Let's see. Still need to sand those down as well. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So yes, the missile tubes. I think cool addition. I actually kind of prefer them under the arm like that. I think looks pretty cool, but it kind of depends on what you're going to be doing with the hands. If you got something in the hands or something, depending on the stance, depending on the pose or whatever. But I think they look cool, kind of like that. Up over the shoulder. I'm not really quite as into the look of it, to be honest. I don't know. Or, yeah, I'm not sure. Because it's always kind of a bit odd for me to see missile pods like this, where you have this big, massive missile pod or cannon or something where it's held on by this like tiny little arm of like this little tiny mechanical arm there. It just kind of throws off the realism of it. It's kind of hard to imagine that this big thing would be firing missiles and held on by that little tiny arm on the back. That's it looks seems a bit more convincing here in the lower orientation for some reason. I don't know why it looks more realistic to me like that. But adding some other sort of like support system there in the back for these, some more pieces like kind of between them or something, just to kind of flesh out the kind of support system for how these are connected onto the back, I think could look cool if you wanted to have them up over the shoulder like that. I would not recommend attaching them directly on top of the shoulder, though. I mean, I don't think that you were planning on doing that, but just I could see, that idea of possibly coming into your head, or anyone else who's maybe thinking about that. It's kind of not necessarily for you, John, but for people in general. Usually adding some big missile pods or something like that onto like the top of the shoulders just kind of looks a bit odd as well too, in my opinion. I was also recommended by the Discord group to do underneath. Yeah. So yeah, underneath I think does look cool like that. But yeah, again, it just depends on the pose you're wanting to do with it ultimately. But if it's a pose where that works for you, then I think that's a good look for it. It looks cool. Also, you could do these. I mean, it's kind of late. You'd have to now fix your backpack after you've already drilled the holes in there. But I think it could look cool too to have these attached onto the back skirt. So kind of like the Buster Gundam, but those are actually kind of like attached onto like this side skirt, aren't they? I'm just trying to remember that like support arm for the Buster Gundams, big massive cannons, big massive weapons are like attached onto like the side skirt, kind of, aren't they? I think these would look cool if they were attached onto like the lower back, or like they kind of make a system for them like here at like the top of the back skirt, kind of like behind the middle section there, and like kind of on the top of the back skirt. So maybe like getting rid of the beam saber and sort of making something that like attaches onto like the top of the back skirt here below the backpack, and like on the top of the back skirt, making a kind of system using your Kotobukiya parts there to have those attached onto the back of there, I think could look pretty cool. And then having them, so like when they're not in use, they just fold up kind of like behind the back of the thighs there, sort of like back side skirts, sort of like that. When not in use, they just kind of store there. And then for when in use, all they need to do is just rotate forward, basically, kind of thing. I think that could look really cool. Yeah, I mean, attached to the backpack is okay too. So I mean, but I think on the back skirt, like top of the back skirt, could look kind of cool, kind of unique, kind of similar to the Zaku cannon. Basically, if you imagine like how the Zaku cannons, how Zaku cannon looks. Let me just put up an example. So we can all have a look at that. If I can find a good photo. Oops, I wanted to do this. Can we see a good image from the back? So kind of like this kind of thing here. I've got it like kind of at the top of the back skirt. And oops. And the cannons just come out to the side like that off the back skirt. Something like that I think would look really cool for this, in my opinion. So that's something to think about. All right, there you go. Okay, so yeah, there's those. Obviously, once the tabs or the connection points all cut off, those are looking much better. And adding some detail into that. Yes, this it's quite large. These blocks of plot play added onto there, so I would maybe recommend filing those down a little bit, having them not so pronounced. Maybe. I mean, yeah. Or the thing you could do too is to add file or cut. You have to like either chisel or file some, what do you call it, ridges in there to make it look like that kind of thing, you know, like how you can see like on some like gun barrels or something. What's the word that I'm looking for how you would describe that? You know what I mean? Ribbed, basically. I don't know. Could look kind of cool for those added sections onto there as well too. This is some scribing work. It looks like here on the top of the head, and that looks pretty good. I think that looks nice. And this little bit here, little Kotobuki part added onto the back for that kind of extra antenna there onto the back of that. Looks nice as well too, like that. Yeah, ridges. Yeah, ridges. Picatinny rails. Yeah, that kind of rail ridge section. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, okay. Some scribing here on the chest as well too. Yeah, a little bit needs a little bit of cleanup over here on this side, but that's pretty easy to do. You can lay some putty on that and clean that up pretty easily if you need to. I think here on the arms as well too. Yeah, just got like little bits of plot play added onto there. This one, I think there's something here as well too. I can't quite see it. It looks the white's kind of blown out. I think maybe a little bit of plot play or something added onto that part of the arm there as well too. The scribing, the panel line, that was good. I mean, it's a pretty standard kind of shoulder panel line added onto there. And I think, again, as far as I can tell in the photo, it looks pretty good. And then here on the side of the arm as well too, you got the classic 3-point line there. That all looks good. This one here on the side, again, it's kind of hard to make suggestions after the fact because you can't really change it now at this point. But having this line going up the side here, having that not centered, I think could have looked cool too if you had it kind of more one way or the other. A little bit more to the back or something like that, not in the center. Could have looked cool, but maybe. And let's see. This would be the back of the arm here as well too. So yeah, this detail here on the back of the bicep, that looks nice. That's a nice separation of that. That looks good. And this side of the arm, what are we looking at here on the inside? Are those circle kind of rivet details added or not? I think those are part of the original kit, aren't they? But what am I looking at in this photo? What am I not seeing? Oh, this the little notches scribed here on the bottom of the bicep. Yeah. Also looks good. Very cool. Sorry, I rushed photos scribing work there. No worries, John. I mean, I get the idea. Yes, I think the scribing work in general looks. I think the design of the scribing work looks good. Obviously, a couple of the lines look a little bit rough. I mean, that's just something you just get better with practice. But I think it's almost equally as important that the design of the panel lines makes sense in a sensible way as well too. So I think that you've got going fine so far. So that looks good. And this is the last thing. And you mentioned about not being too happy with how this was looking on the top of the shoulders. This one as well too, I think kind of similar to what I mentioned with the missile pods here. It just looks a bit too thick. And here as well too. You can see this one, it looks like it's shaved down some. But still, I think probably the issue, maybe what's bothering you about it, and what jumped out immediately to me about it as well, is it's very thick. So I'm not sure the measurement on that, but it looks possibly more than 1 millimeter thickness on that. I don't know if it's 1.5 or something. It doesn't look 2, because 2 millimeter, then it's like plowboard, and it's kind of a little bit different. But again, I think generally the detail of it looks pretty good. If you had maybe 2 rows of this rather than like the one in the center, but like, 2 rows of detail. So basically take this here and just double it, have them 4 pieces instead of the 2, I think could look cool. And yeah, it's just a bit thick, I think is kind of probably what's making it look a bit odd. But other than that, I think the general thought of placing some added detail here onto this part of the top of the shoulder, I think does make sense. So that's good. All right. Anyway, John, I think it's looking good so far. Still, obviously, some more work to do and some more cleanup work to do. So send some more photos for the next episode. We'll take a look at it again at that time and see how it's looking. All right. Let's see. Next, we have from Sturgetty, who I've seen has been here in the chat. I assume Stur, you're still around? Taking a look at some Machine Krieger stuff. It might be the first time we're taking a look at any Machine Krieger stuff in an episode of Critique here. So he submitted 2 things, an SAFS and a Snake Eye kit here. So we've got a few photos of each of these. And where's the other one? Here's the 2 more lighter kind of outdoor photos here of the SAFS. So take a look at these kind of more darker, a little more kind of stylistic photos of these here first. These are all in 120 scale, by the way. I can definitely see some of, let's see, where was that? Here on the shoulder, like some of the vector weathering, the scratches kind of on there of that weathering there, like on the side of this shoulder panel. That looks nice. And let's see, you can see in these images here. I mean, the weathering, like the placement of just the damage on the parts and things, like the physical weathering, I think does look nice. And you can see some of that done like just with the paint work, I think, as well too. But let's take a look at these. It'll be easier to see in these lighter photos, definitely. So you can see some more of that here on the top of the head too, like the more physical damage, and here on the edge. So yeah, definitely all the physical damaging to it, I think, does look really nice. As far as like the paint weathering as well too, looks good. You've got a little bit of that kind of going on here on like this green, where the photo's kind of coming apart a little bit on me there. But where on like the green, it looks a bit like just the green paint was not applied totally. I don't know. We want to go back to opacity of it. Like the green paint looks like it was applied later, but I mean, in canon, it does sort of make sense. Or like if you're thinking about it in like a realistic sense, that's not necessarily that it's painted badly, but you know, if you're painting like that intentionally to intentionally make it look like that, intentionally that it looks like the green paint was painted onto this suit. So like maybe this suit was originally, you know, came out of the factory or whatever, all white, but then just to add some camo to it, the green paint was painted onto it. So having it look like intentionally painted in the field, maybe kind of poorly, or just where the paint is kind of slapped on there, I think that look is achieved pretty well with this, if that's what you're going for. Yeah, is an overpaint of the white. Okay, so yeah, I think if that's what you're going for, yeah, that's definitely the sense that I get from it. So that looks good. And then you got this little kind of box here added onto the back. Is that added on? I'm not sure if I've ever remember seeing that included in an SAFS kit or not, or if that's something that you added onto there. I assume that it must be something from a kit, maybe just something I'm not familiar with. Is this an older kit? Is this a Wave kit or a Nido kit? I'm not sure about that. So you'll have to let me know on that, Stargate. But yeah, definitely, aside from like the physical weathering up the scratches and stuff in the actual plastic, but you can see some of that recreated here just with the paint texturing as well. So you can see where there's some like scratches in like the thickness of the paint and everything. So that's done pretty nicely. Yeah, in general, I think the weathering does look pretty nice. Something about I'm just trying to nail down exactly what it is. I don't know if it's just like the darkness of the green color. The colors don't match, or the colors I don't know, don't go together that well. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what it is, and I know because it's meant to look like the green is just slapped on there later on, kind of after the fact, like in the midst of the battlefield or something like that. That was added onto there later, so it would make sense that the colors don't match. It's not like it's not designed to match, if you get what I mean. But I'm not sure. Something about the two colors looks a bit odd. Like the green is a little bit warm, and the white is like a little bit kind of a cooler, kind of bluish, kind of white. So the two colors are clashing a little bit for me. But you know, it's like I said, if you're thinking about it realistically, they wouldn't necessarily match. But just as a painting piece here, which is kind of a lot of Machine and Krieger kits, it's kind of like half realistic modeling and half like unrealistic painting. It's not Canon camo, so I think my matching of the light blue and green didn't hit like you're saying. Yeah, okay, so you're in agreement with that. So I think that's the one thing that's kind of throwing it off for me, because like everything else of like the weather and everything, I'm like, I'm not really finding any fault like in the weathering. I mean, the weathering all looks good, and like I'm guessing you're using some oils on that as well too. It looks like for some like filtering with some oils and everything. And so I mean, like everything looks like it's done right, but for some reason something still looks a bit off, and I think it's just because of the colors there. So not that it looks bad or wrong by any means. I think it still looks very good. So it's a hard line to draw. I think, yeah, it's just it's tough. If you want it to be like a, you know, totally realistic looking like that, I mean, that's kind of how it would be, right? So I don't know how you make it more convincing in that way, if that makes sense. But anyway, I think it looks good. And the orange is nice too, because it's not super bright, but it does give you some nice little accents around on there. And the color and the placement of the orange, everything is nice to break that up as well too. So I like that. That looks good. Let's take a look at the snake eye here, which is in the all space white colors. This one as well too. Got some nice painting going on with that. This one, like around the decals, maybe Stir, you can answer about this. Just I can see, like, is it something that kind of went awry? I'm not sure if this was done intentionally or not, but you can really see the outline of the decals a lot here. So I'm not sure how that happened. Something along the way with the weathering of this, where some step really kind of accentuated the outline of the decals, if you can see what I mean. I'm guessing that was not done intentionally, but maybe it was. It was a glossy finish, so I forgot to gloss after the decals. Okay. It was a glossy finish, so skip my mind. Okay, so just that's what he's saying. So, like, just for in case you guys didn't know. Okay, and yes, I did see. Yes, you mentioned about the micro missiles scratch built and added on. Yes, about this, which I was mentioning about here. He said that was a scratch built little micro missile pod added on. So okay, it's cool. I like it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So he said after applying decals, so basically you would paint and then decals and then weathering. But before you do weathering, normally what you would do is to do a gloss coat and or some other top coat on top of the decals before weathering. But I guess we didn't, because he didn't do that. It looks like the decals got kind of stained a little bit, sort of, from the weathering process. You cover it up with Vallejo grease stain on the decals. Anyway, Michael's saying you could try that Vallejo grease stain. I'm not familiar with that product, so I couldn't say, but yeah, that's kind of the only real thing that like really immediately jumps out at me. You can definitely see some variation here in the white, like the off-white and the more yellow white. I'm guessing that's probably not two different paints, but it's just more coats of paint or more paint added onto the different sections. It's intentionally painted unevenly. That's kind of the thing with Machine Krieger. They're usually painted in that style, intentionally unevenly like that, to kind of add to the weathering whilst doing your painting. So you're kind of already doing your weathering while just laying down the base color by painting it unevenly like that, giving you like a good base for your weathering, sort of, basically. So I'm guessing that that's all one color. It's just painted unevenly like that on purpose, which, I mean, it looks pretty cool. And the pilot figure and inside the cockpit looks nice as well too, with that opened up. That looks cool. And not really pilot figure, it's sort of pilot helmet there. But I like the color of that, and then just kind of like dark blue color. It's not like it's not anything too bright or anything like that. Just a nice kind of dark color in there. That looks good. So you can see the details, and you can see some different colors in there, but it's nothing like too colorful or crazy, anything like that. And we don't have, I think necessarily, I think this is like maybe the fullest photo we have to see like a full photo of this thing, like, so we can see the whole thing in the frame. Would be nice. But I do like how you have these other little sections here of pure white. Let's see. All right, just kind of checking the chat there again as well too. That's kind of cool. Little bits of pure white. The weathering on this one, just want to check about the chipping. I think it's not quite as nice as the SAFS, I'll say. I think your weathering on this one in general was nicer. So I don't know if maybe this one was done first and this one was done later. But it just looks a bit more even on this one, I think, realistically. This one looks like probably is an earlier work. The pure white was a link tip. Yeah. It's nice. I think there was another spot of that pure white around somewhere on there too, wasn't there? I think I saw. Or was that, yeah, here on the back of the arm as well too. There, yeah, that's cool. Just so you can really tell that this is, I mean, it just kind of really accentuates that this is off-white, that cream space white color. Yeah, the weathering definitely looks not as good as on the other one. Not maybe not quite as much like attention to the detail of that. Just kind of like where you know like the general steps for weathering, but like kind of before you're really taking too much thought into like really exactly where and why each different little bit would be weathered in different ways. I can see a lot more of that here with this one, definitely. So either way, I mean, still looks pretty cool, and just love that suit design. The snake eye is really cool. Love that big backpack on it. It's a really nice canvas for painting this big bulbous backpack that it's got on there. So it looks cool. Yeah. It's later, but it was a quick job, but the white gave me a lot of problems, so I definitely should have sat down more with it. Oh, okay, so it was actually later. But yeah, I can get the feeling that it just seems a bit more rushed compared to the other one. Not necessarily that any of the weathering really looks like wrong or bad, but it does seem like there's just less care compared to the other one. That's all. But yeah, it looks nice. I'm glad to be able to take a look at some Machining Krieger stuff in one of these episodes finally. So I'm happy about that. All right, and we got one more we're going to be taking a look at here today. Then, thank you, Sturgetti. Thanks for your submissions there. Like I said, happy to take a look at some Machining Krieger stuff. And thank you for being our resident Machining Krieger expert as well, too. That's very helpful. All right, so last stuff we're taking a look at here is from Tim. His first time, and Stir as well too. Both of them, it's their first time. We're taking a look at their stuff here in one of these episodes. Here's Tim. I don't think Tim's watching at the moment, so we won't be able to get any live feedback from him, unfortunately. But here we go. Just checking Tim's email about this. Let's see. We got kind of a few different things here. You can see a hanger base, kind of more hanger stuff here with a crossbone. And where is it? I saw there was a Star Wars kit in here as well too. At the very end, a little A-wing there. It's A-wing, right? I could get in trouble with that. Could lose my Star Wars cred if I'm calling that wrong. I'm certainly no expert at like ship names and stuff like that, even though that's a really common ship, I know. But anyway, okay. So let me see here in his email. He said, I'm working on a mixed scale hanger diorama. Pretty rough work in progress. It's made of an old Wi-Fi board. Oh, really? Let me see this. Well, wherever the Wi-Fi board is, I don't know if I'm really seeing it. So, I mean, it's lost in there well enough, I suppose. Let's see. And some Nerf gun parts and about a mile of Ethernet wires I had lying around. I started it mostly a trial and error project while I work on scratch building things and use the basic backdrop for my photos. I have two versions of the Bandai System Base 01. Both came molded in white. When I have tried a full paint in weather, and the other one just added some spilled oil and grime. The caution warning decals are from a third-party generic decal set. So this one I think what he's talking about. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely got that spilled grime look to it. I think probably a little bit too much. I mean, depending on what you wanted to go for, I think like having this spilled look, I mean, it does look cool if you had like 1 or 2 of those, but it's a bit much, kind of just like splattered all over the place. So I think you need to, I mean, and he said it's work in progress, so I'm not gonna judge too harshly, but definitely some more cleanup on this. Clean up some of that because it just looks like somebody just took a big bucket of like grease, dirt, slush, and just like threw it all over this thing. So I would say clean that up a little bit. I mean, depending on the look you're going for, but I mean, even if you're going for a super dirty look like that, I think it's a bit much. It's gonna look a bit too over the top, having stuff splattered all over it too much like that. But yeah, I mean, just like you can see how if you just had like a couple of these spilled stains like that, where it looks like just some oil spilled or coffee spilled or something like that, you had like some technicians got a cup of coffee or something spilled like that, oil, whatever. You can see how that will look cool on there, but in moderation. So obviously, there's a lot on that there. But so, and he said this was molded in white, but he said there was 2. One was all painted. So I'm just wondering where's the painted one, because that one looks unpainted. Like it's just the white one that's not painted, because you can see the nub mark on it here and mold line going down the side of that there. So I think he said one was painted, right? 2 versions of the system base, both came molded in white. One I tried a full paint in whether I don't know where's the fully painted one. Oh, maybe this one. Yeah, because he said they're both in white, so maybe this is the one that he fully painted to gray. But still, go back. Still some mold lines on this one. Well, it's kind of hard to tell from the photo. I'm assuming there's some more here and like here. It's a pain in the ass on these. That's the one thing about using base parts and things like this, because they're just a pain in the ass to get rid of these massive mold lines you have going down the sides of all these parts like this, big massive parts with massive mold lines, and they're usually really uneven. Like usually the mold line would be like just a little bit in the center sticking up, but these it's like completely different levels. So like when you're trying to sand, that you're sanding to get them down level, or you have to use some putty or something. So they're a pain. I understand that, but definitely going to help to make them look more realistic if you get rid of some of those mold lines. This one has less stuff splattered on it, which looks good. You got a lot down here at the bottom, that kind of makes sense. You know, there would be oil and liquids and stuff, whatever spilled at the bottom. That makes sense. I think you could even go a little bit more with that, just to fill in all these little details. Because look, you got like the main splatter here, main kind of puddle of liquid there at the bottom, which looks pretty good. But then filling in all these other little details just with some black or dark brown Pentaline wash, basically, to fill in those little details and everything as well too. Would look good, because now it kind of looks a bit odd. You've got like this great detail, but it doesn't actually look like a great detail without everything filled in there properly. The kind of the chipping on there, which looks not dry brush, but probably like a sponge, done with a sponge, I would imagine, is also a little bit too all over the place. You have to be kind of thoughtful as to like where realistically chipping would occur or not. And it looks just kind of a little bit evenly applied, just kind of all over the place. Also, I would recommend using multiple colors. It all kind of looks like it's done in this kind of like silvery chrome kind of color. But then going over that again with a secondary or even a third color, I think would be good. Like a different kind of lighter or darker gray or something like that. And not the same amount. So you say, for example, you do like you have your first chipping that you're doing with your silver color main is your main color. So that's 100%. Then when you go with your secondary color, you don't want to also do like an equal amount of the secondary color. Obviously, you want to do a little bit less. So like 50% or less, 30% for secondary color. And then if you do a third color as well too, you do like 5-10%, a little tiny bit of that, just to give it some nice variation in the colors that we're chipping. Okay, Tim is here. Hey, Tim. Glad you could make it there. I got that effect by doing splashes of weathering oils and not letting them dry for a few days. Yeah, so yeah, I think the effect here definitely looks nicer with this one. So anyway, let me go back to your email here. I have a 100 scale crossbone, and I tried to give it very weathered for a heavy maintenance look, and it was weathered with sponge weathering and acrylic. Okay, so yeah, sponge. Should have read the email entirely first. I've also got a 144 scale base jabber. This is painted. This I painted the big pieces with a spray can and then sponge on some silver marks on this, weathering marks. I know some of the paint lines are very rough around the windows. So that would be this guy you can see down there. It's kind of interesting how this is, I said it's a master grade crossbone and a 144 scale base jabber, but they almost look the same scale. Just goes to show how small the crossbone is. And how big the base jabber. The base jabber is pretty big, obviously, because of Molson needs to ride on it. So there was a close-up of the base jabber too, wasn't there? Another one? Another closer-up image? Well, anyway, you can see kind of on here anyway. So that, and I can see what you're talking about, how like this blue color used for painting the kind of window sections of that is not very clean. So yeah, you can see that. Also, looks the paint on the top. I think that you said this was done with the spray can. You can see how the paint is kind of like crackling there. That looks a bit odd. That's weird. I mean, I've seen that happen before, but it's kind of rare. Like hard to do that. I'm sure that was not intentional. I mean, but I mean, it's kind of. I wonder what the conditions were with that when you painted that. Why it reacted like that? Why the paint did that? It's weird. One thing you could do, I mean, if you're unhappy with it, if you're unhappy with that paint and unhappy with the blue, I mean, you could strip that paint off there if you were so inclined and repaint it again. If you just get some isopropyl alcohol, or like if you're in America, you can get Purple Power. You can get like a big, massive thing of Purple Power for like 10, 15, 20 bucks, something. I don't know, not very expensive. That'll give you more than enough of what you'll need to strip that paint off of there without too much issue. So I would say, you know, if you wanted, that's something you could do. Definitely, I would recommend adding some more details or painting something in here. Why is it trying to zoom? Why is it not working? There you go. Into this back section here. Adding all the wires and everything, I think, is a cool idea, but it doesn't look too blended together very well yet. So I'm sure this is still work in progress. So you're still working on that, but just to get everything blended really nicely, you know, once you start painting in some of this background area, adding some other parts into that, basically kind of for making it look more like a kind of mechanical kind of hanger wall. Is kind of the more stuff you add onto that, the more convincing it's going to look. You just add a bunch of stuff on there, like these kind of panels of, that's like I don't know, some computer part or something. Adding all that stuff on there, and it's going to look a mess. But then once you paint over it in one solid color, everything kind of blends together very well, and it's going to look really nice once you get some more stuff added in there. And I like the use of like the little vehicles and everything looks pretty well too. Like the one thing with the wires, and this is not easy to do, I understand, but with these wires, like here coming off the base jabber and then here coming out of the Gundam, it's tricky to do, but will definitely help for hangar scenes, is to work the wire to make it look like it's got some weight to it, unless it's a zero gravity. If this is like supposed to be in space, then it doesn't really matter so much. But I'm getting the sense that there is gravity in this room, because you got the guys down here on the floor and everything, so it doesn't necessarily look like it's supposed to be a zero gravity area. And you got like these cars, little vehicles, wheels and stuff. So just making these hoses look like they're actually weighted down, so that they would actually be down, and like rather than like floating through the air like this, they would be running along the floor. Just helps with the realism of things like this. And the same thing here with these wires going out of the chest, for example, of the crossbone. It just looks like they're just run right down into there, when realistically, if these were like going from the ceiling, for example, there would need to be some support like holding up the wire, and it would be just by gravity be going straight down. And then if it was not like directly above the Gundam, they'd be straight down, and then, you know, like a dip, and then going into the cockpit like that, something like that. So just imagining the wires as if they do have some actual weight to them. Let me see. The hanger is learning and work in progress over the last year. Slower project. Yeah, I mean it's a good thing to just kind of have around to work on over time, because there's different things that you'll learn that you can work on with it, and just kind of develop it over time, as it's not necessarily like a piece that you're working on with a set goal, but just something that you're just kind of chipping away at over time as you learn new things. So you can make different adjustments and things as you learn new things, adding stuff to it or changing things and all of that. Also, I get that the crossbone is meant to look like a heavily worn, heavily damaged, as you said. Let's see. You said heavy weathered in for heavy, or very weathered in for heavy maintenance look. I think you could try doing some physical damage to it as well too. I can't tell in the photos if you have or not. It looks like mostly it's just like chipping, kind of painted, using paint to give it a weathered look. But you could try doing some physical damage to it as well too. Some actual kind of like broken kind of looking areas, or scratches. But again, just in moderation. Do like a couple and just kind of see how it's looking. Don't just like go in and just like start slashing it up all over the place and going to town with it. You have to do it in moderation to make it look realistic. Oh, and you got the core fighter down here with the nose gone off. I like that. That's cool. And this kind of thing too. I mean, when you have like separate pieces off to the side, if you're thinking like if this was realistically in like a hangar sort of maintenance situation, probably they wouldn't just set that directly on the ground. It would be like on top of like a pallet or something like that, or some sort of like table. I mean, depending on the size of this, and you think like realistically, that's like a piece that's like this big chunk of this thing. So having it on something just will kind of help, I think, set it into the scene. As it is, it just kind of looks like it's just placed on the floor. But I think just to help sell the look of the scene in general, I mean, having that like actually on something, I think would look good. So yeah, when it comes to like doing diorama stuff like this, it's just kind of like the more stuff you add to it, the more realistic it's going to look. So you just kind of keep having to add more and more stuff to it. Obviously, I guess there would be a limit where it would look too overcrowded with stuff all over the place. But the more you add, I think the better off you'll be. So that's, like you said, it's something that you're working on over time. You can just keep continuing to add stuff and change things and all that. So, and then, yeah, this one as well too. I think the stain on that looks good, but there's just a little bit too much of it, I think, I would say. So it needs a little bit more cleanup, but I think the look of that, it looks like you got maybe some fingerprints here at the back of that, on the back little wings there. Classic. So that's the trouble with weathering. It's hard to do without leaving fingerprints. But yeah, I think the look of the staining, I think it looks good. It's just too much of it all over the place. So just in moderation. Let's see. And too heavy on my barbatos. I wanted to scale it back after that. Yeah. So he said he did try some like physical weathering, scratches and stuff, broken pieces and stuff on the barbatos, which you can see a couple of pieces of that in there in the background. So yeah, I think in general it's a cool thing to work on. And there's just some stuff that you can do, but I mean, just keep at it. Keep work on different things to just kind of progress it along. There's lots of different examples that you can look at online too. So I mean, looking at different examples of hanger works that people have done, just kind of get different ideas about that. He said, I know, I'm just going back to the email to see if there's anything else I missed at the end of the email here. He said, I know I'm mixing scales and some people will get really upset about that. Personally, I don't care about that. So I don't know. Some people might, but I think mixing scales is not a big deal. I I figure the whole setup will be taken apart for other Scratch projects one day. But you have to break a few things. Yeah. It's a good work in progress, yeah. And you'll take it apart and make changes. And that's the one thing that you could do with it. You could do kind of cool with something like this is where you make it in separate sections so that you can take it apart and do different things. So you make like kind of the main like kind of back walls and the floor like all done in a way and separate, and like have it separate sections so you can take some things in and out as needed to do different photographs and things, like just using it as like a backdrop space for taking photographs of stuff in hangars. So you have different sections of that can be removed and added back in for different things. It's a cool idea. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that as well. Okay. All right. So, let's see. Jian Sniper says Star Wars has a lot of dirty ships, so I think it's fine. Yes, surely. Dirty ships are surely a thing. That's true. Tired this morning. But that is a wrap for all the entries that we have to take a look at for today. So thank you guys all, those of you guys who submitted your work. Thank you so much. And all the rest of my Patreon supporters as well too. Thank you guys all so much. Really appreciate all your guys' support. And if you guys are interested in submitting anything for future episodes, or you want to join the Discord, that's all Patreon related perks. So you can check out my Patreon page if you want to become a supporter. Greatly appreciated. Also, just a reminder too that I'll just talk about this again. I talked about it at the beginning of the stream, but I'll just remind you guys again, any of you who are coming in later. Tomorrow, I'll be live streaming again in the morning, working on basically finishing the main construction of the Machine Krieger Dachshund kit here. And then Friday, I'll be live with Adam on the USA Gundam TV channel. And that'll be Friday morning for those of you guys in the US. It's Friday night here for me. We'll be doing our usual deal where we'll be answering you guys' questions, and we'll also have a giveaway, giving away the Master Grade Barbatos expansion set, P-Bandai expansion set for the Master Grade Barbatos. So again, to enter in the giveaway, you need to ask a question, post a question on one of the social media posts ahead of the stream. So make sure you do that. And we'll be announcing the next big building contest from USA Gundam Store, and I'll just be helping to organize that. So that'll be fun. It'll be a cool contest. We got a couple of cool categories, some cool judges, and it'll be a cool time. Cool? All right. So that's what I need to let you guys know about for now. Yes, and until next time, just see you guys later. I'll have a good one. Bye, guys.